Good evening, everyone. We're glad you've joined us. I'm Kelly Ogle.
And I'm Jennifer Reynolds. April 19th, 1995.
The date marks the worst U.S. terrorist attack in history, the bombing of the Alfred Murrow building in downtown Oklahoma City.
The explosion shook central Oklahoma, killed nearly 170 people and injured more than 400 others. And it forever altered our sense of security and innocence.
On this Memorial Day, a day to remember our dead, Newsline 9 dedicates the next hour to the bombing victims, their families, and to the heroes involved in the rescue.
This special report begins shortly after 9 a.m., April 19th, 1995.
This is a Newsline 9 Memorial Day special. Terror hits home.
Side of the federal building has been blown off.
Holy cow.
Ambulance tell IMSA there'll be a mass unit dispatch.
Tremendous blast came through the windows, blew us out of our chairs onto the floor.
24 acres, we're 97. We got damage and injuries all up and down Broadway.
I thank the Lord that I wasn't sitting at my desk at that time, because that portion of the building is gone.
Need every available empty get fire everybody.
They are bringing people out that are just covered in blood. Ambulance crews have been arriving for the last 10 minutes, and they are going into the building.
The whole back of the building just fell in on us.
This one, we have got a lot of children right over here at the YMCA also.
What's happening? You know, it was like it happened in slow motion.
All around us there are dazed people, some with blood, some the shirts hanging off of them, glass, debris everywhere, fires burning in the parking lot. The police and emergency crews are talking about moving us back because of the danger of a possibility of another explosion. The devastation at the Alfred Murrow Federal Building appears to be almost total.
I've got 6 and 7 people down in the 100 block of Northwest 6. I need ambulances.
Don't know what happened, just a blast.
Just a tremendous explosion. The ceiling, the windows came in. It definitely boom.
I was falling, then I hit, and I was dazed for a minute or a few seconds, and I realized there had to be an explosion or something.
We got them trapped all the way on the 7th floor. They're tying sheets together now, trying to climb down the sheets on the 7th floor.
My entire staff of about 7 people is gone. It's gone.
Debris everywhere down here, smoke billowing into the air. The large church at the corner of 4th and Harvey, all the stained glass windows have been blown out of the east side of the building. Again, it is chaos down here.
Be advised, the fire department in the basement of the federal building. There's a children's center, and we need to get the fire department officials up here as quick as we can.
Can you tell me your name? Can you tell me your name? Is there someone there?
My daughter's one, and she's in there.
Adam 38, are you on the north side of the federal building with people buried?
I'm on the east side of the federal building. It's collapsed.
You went to the nursery?
Yeah, we were pulling. Well, we pulled 5 little kids out and a couple of ladies.
All we can do is just be of as much assistance as we can to those who are injured, and try to get them to some medical care.
You're doing a great job. We all of us in Oklahoma City, thank you for what you've done today.
Well, thank you.
And what many other people like him are doing. The devastation again in downtown Oklahoma City is absolutely incredible. The Alfred Murrow building is almost gone completely. Half of it has collapsed. Numerous injuries all over town. Adults, children, there's glass everywhere. Virtually every building in downtown Oklahoma City appears to have been damaged. in some way.
Let's move out! I've got 2 down in the 100 block at Northwest 6th and the C.R. Anthony building that are not moving. They're unconscious and not moving. The ones I can, I'm going to transport to a hospital. I've got about 6.
We're going to go to 5th in Oklahoma. We will first have the ER people in their groups of 4.
It's just a shuttle of ambulances, one after another, bringing in victims. We have the latest information now. 60 adults have been brought in. You're looking at video now that we just brought back here to the
newsroom. All right, be careful. Let's just warn them now, Cynthia, that this is raw tape that we shot at the hospital, and we have not censored this in any way, so you may see some graphic stuff.
Yeah, they're pretty much, the victims have broken bones, cuts and bruises and burns. 60 adults are being taken care of now at University Hospital. At Children's Hospital, there are 10 children and 5 adults at that facility. They range in fair to critical condition, and a sad note here, the ages are from 2 months to 18 years old at Children's Hospital.
They just told us that they'd found 80 people and only 2 were alive, and they told us all to go home.
It's called Condition Black, and we have, 30 or 40 different hospital personnel who are standing outside of the emergency room waiting for the ambulances to come up, and they've got their teams ready, and they take the people and they get in and they get them treated.
I'm there bringing out bodies of many people, and it's awful hard on the officers and everybody that's had to bring the bodies out, and the people that are tagging, and just in general everybody. It's like a war zone down there.
But you've seen the pictures from the Murrow building. It would be a miracle of biblical proportion that someone did not die inside that building. My feeling is that many people did. And many people also are in very critical condition out here on the streets of Oklahoma City.
Let's move these people at least to the middle of the street, because we got glass fixing to follow us from behind, okay?
Ocean 2 headquarters, there's people trapped in this situation on like 6th floor.
We're on the 5th floor, right on the end. I can walk from here, from my office to the door where I normally enter, and there's nothing there anymore. It's from me to these individuals that the building's gone.
It's just astonishing to me that an evil human being would do this to children and other innocent people. It's just absolutely astonishing, especially here in the middle of Middle America.
That's the thing that's going through my mind right now. This is something that happens somewhere else. This is something that happens in places like Beirut, places far, far away, places with strange sounding names. It's not something that's supposed to happen in places like Oklahoma City. It's not something that's supposed to happen at home.
This is just a few moments ago.
Bill, people running north away from the federal building. You see them waving people off, saying, get away from the building.
Another bomb, move back.
My mom's in there.
Just when we were trying to carry the people out, and they hollered bomb, and we can't leave. We had a lady in there that was still alive, but we didn't want to leave her because, and they were yelling at us to come on and get out of there. But when you got a live person, it doesn't make no difference. It doesn't make any difference. If you got a live person in there, you try to stay with them, and the worst part was having to leave her. But we did go back and get her, and she is alive, and she's on our way to one of the hospitals. All I can tell you, man.
Our rescue crews now are back in. We've got people we're talking to through the floors.
The debris you see laying out in the streets that's in piles and stuff, it's exactly like that in the buildings. It's dark, it's dusty, there's bodies, there's chaos everywhere.
From the explosion, from the way that the explosion had gone up the building and also out, it looks like it may have been in a vehicle parked in front of the building. Now, of course, they won't know that for some time.
You wonder how somebody could be so heartless as, you're talking not only human lives, but adult lives, but you're talking about children. There was no compassion for anybody. And, this is just a cold-blooded killing.
We have at this time no assumptions with regard to who caused this particular bombing. And we have had hundreds, if not thousands, of leads.
It is as far as I know, the most serious attack on civilians in American history.
But it's going to be a long, tedious task. We'll be here for days doing this. You know, this rescue effort is probably going to take about 3 or 4 days at least, so around the clock. We'll not stop tonight. We've got lights and generators and everything coming in, and we've got every Oklahoma City fire unit in town is down here. We've got off-duty people deployed throughout the stations. Metro area departments are down, and good cooperation through all the emergency service agencies.
The building is now illuminated. They've got spotlights on the building. There is a large crane in front of it. This is all part of the search efforts. They are not giving up efforts tonight. They are not giving up hope.
I just spoke with one of the rescue workers who has just come out of the federal building. He says that there is one woman who is in the basement. She's pinned in there, and they can hear her. They can talk to her.
The wind has picked up out here. It is pouring down rain. The wind is blowing, and there you can see various things falling off the building. As we said just moments ago, people, there you can see chunks of it, huge chunks flying away.
Finally, let me say that I ask all Americans tonight to pray. To pray for the people who have lost their lives, to pray for the families and the friends of the dead and the wounded, to pray for the people of Oklahoma City. May God's grace be with them. Meanwhile, we will be about our work.
People here in that row will meet where?
A complete list of the wounded, which has been taken to area hospitals, and a list of the victims that they've been identified. Okay? Thank you.
But most of them that are here right now that I've talked to have already been to St. Anthony's, and they're not on the list.
People like the Cooper family.
Whenever I found out, we first went to Children's, and we've just been hopping around the city trying to find out if John Doe baby is ours, and we've come up negative every time.
Every day, I'm gonna drop him off, and I go see him every day at lunch, and today I didn't get to go.
Little Antonio didn't make it. Neither did Bailey Allman, the baby in the now world-famous picture.
Well, her birthday was one day before the explosion. She was 1. This is her picture. She was so happy. She always smiled all the time. She was the sweetest little girl. She loved everyone. She was so sweet.
I wish there was a way that it could be a little bit more comforting. 1,000 thoughts must be racing through her mind. Erin Allman's 1-year-old baby is dead, and she's about to meet the 2 men who risked their lives trying to save her little girl.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for getting her out of there.
The first to arrive, Oklahoma City Police Sergeant John Avery.
Thank you so much for getting her out. No. At least she's out of there.
Sergeant Avery raced into the federal building after the explosion and pulled little Bailey out of the rubble.
Well, she didn't suffer then, huh?
Do what?
She didn't suffer then at all.
In fact, when we dug her out, she wasn't the baby crying. There was a baby next to her crying.
That baby's all right? She's not all right?
Sergeant Avery continued searching for more children and handed Bailey to Oklahoma City firefighter Captain Chris Fields.
How are you, Beth? Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
So sorry. There wasn't anything we could do.
Thank you for getting her out of there as fast as you could.
He got out and gave me, and there was nothing we could do.
I don't know. I'm gonna miss her.
Here's the man right here that got her out, though, buddy. You got good to meet you, bud. Thank you. Really.
A rare moment when two rescuers are reconnected. The kind words and tears, some their own tears, are reminders of why they do what they do. It's their time to be human.
When I was holding her, I think of my son, I see my son, and when I get home and see my son, I see our daughter, so.
I went home last night and hugged my kids for hours. And we went out late and then went home and hugged them again. And in fact, I just talked to them on the way down here, and they just said, "Daddy, please hurry and get home. Daddy, please come on home." That's all they can think about right now, to get me home.
Do you feel better now that you've met them?
Yeah.
What's it like?
At least I know, and they're really nice people. And that one, the fireman has a 2-year-old little boy. So I feel a lot better knowing that they were that nice to help her.
We have not recovered any more children. We still have the number at 13, and all 13 of those children have been identified.
To me, every knock on the door and every telephone call is somebody else who cares, and every flower in this house, every plant in this house, to me it's just a symbol of love, and it just shows how much the people care, because they're coming from everywhere. And to me, that's one of the things that's keeping me going.
And that's not easy when you consider her loss. Edie Smith's only 2 children were killed in the explosion, 2-year-old Colton and 3-year-old Chase.
I woke up this morning and I thought that today was going to be a good day, Today was going to be a good day, and I didn't think I had any tears left in me, and I've cried several times already today.
It's just a heartbreaking thing. Because someone could do that to children.
The cries of their son Christopher are far better than the silence facing parents who lost children in the bombing.
And Christopher is now got severe burns on the face and everywhere. But is still the luckiest baby in the entire daycare center.
Can you open your eyes and look at Mommy?
Christopher is one of 6 children in the Federal Building Daycare Center who survived the blast.
Christopher injuries like bruises in the brain, heart, lung, ear tumor, eardrums, got holes in it, which is expecting, it's not going to happen. But those things will be healed if the time allowed. So we're just waiting for time.
Time that passed ever so slowly for families still waiting.
Every second is just, I think about my poor wife. Just wanting to end this, and again, just get her to put her to rest, because she was just so beautiful.
Beautiful and a believer. She played Mary, Mother of Jesus, in the Easter play at Oklahoma City's Nob Hill Baptist Church. But most of all, she was a good mother to 5-year-old Kylie and 8-year-old Erica.
Well, hopefully they'll find her soon, because just waiting for me is just agony. Just not, I know she's gone, but I would just like to put her to rest.
So for now, waiting families turn their attention to lights of love, the sign of hope from strangers.
The other day, there was just everyone had their lights on, and it really helped me a little bit knowing that people do care. and seeing the Flagstaff Mass shows respect for everyone, affected by this tragedy.
People like Peggy Holland. In the Easter play, a crucified Jesus rested in her arms. Now, it's Peggy's turn to rest in the arms of her Savior. Eventually, Peggy Holland's body was among the 167 others recovered before the building was brought down.
We have come here in shared sorrow to grieve the loss of beloved neighbors, to honor brave comrades, to join our souls in close communion with God.
On eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn.
If anybody thinks that Americans are mostly mean and selfish, they ought to come to Oklahoma.
And so the hurting hearts left behind find strength in their faith and in each other as they somehow go on after such great loss.
Remember the trust of the children. Darkness will not have its day. Take hold of my hands, and we'll both understand that the children will show you the way.
The smoke hadn't even settled yet, and I was just going, good Lord, this is just complete. This is complete death, These people didn't deserve this,
I've never seen the likes of those poor little kids.
They're all buried under there still. We can't get to the kids.
Joey Fansler was supposed to roof a house on April 19th. Instead, he walked straight into the halls of hell.
That was the devil's hand, casting that dagger of death into the heart of the United States of America.
They reached out their hands and opened their hearts. They seemed to come from everywhere, but nowhere in particular. We call them heroes now, these hundreds and hundreds of Oklahomans, in suits and in uniforms. Just ordinary people, really, until 9:02 April 19th. In the minutes and the hours and the days after, they were extraordinary.
Yeah, just sit right here.
We gotta find his brother.
Hey, don't worry about his brother.
I found 3 or 4 of the little guys, bless their little hearts, They were just, they never knew a thing, though, it was all over so fast, they never felt a hint of pain, it was just like a candle. It's burning and then it's gone. They were with God after that,
We kept taking the babies out and just putting them in their own playground. We had to lay them in their own playground and they couldn't play anymore.
I really wanted to find somebody alive. I really wanted to be able to help somebody continue to live their life by getting them out.
And so they accept the title hero with reluctance.
I think a hero is somebody that does something that nobody else would do. And I saw lots of policemen in there. I saw lots of firemen going in there. I saw lots of civilians going in that building. Something that everybody does doesn't make you a hero. It's something that nobody else will do.
And on that Wednesday morning, everyone did something. But there were scant few lives left to save. Many rescuers would dig through the rubble and find only frustration. The lucky ones saved a tiny life.
Just went and tried to see if I could be of assistance in some kind of way.
You know who you're holding right now?
No.
Newsline 9's Kelly Ogle tells us another hero's story.
Got out of the car and started heading towards the federal building. We began running into individuals that were injured.
Gruesome murder scenes, terrible traffic accidents. Detective Don Hull had seen everything, or so he thought, before April 19th. The horror unfolding in the bombed-out federal building overwhelmed even the most experienced officers.
I remember looking up to the 3rd floor, and there was a gentleman seated that was calling out for help that had lost both of his legs.
Detective Hull knew there was a daycare center in the building and about where it should have been. He and several others climbed over a mountain of rubble, determined to find the bombing's youngest victims.
I could hear whimpering and crying and moaning. And you just kept moving towards the sounds.
Hull found 5 children who were already dead. And then, under 3 feet of concrete, steel, and trash, he uncovered a tiny foot.
The last child that I located was Joseph Weber.
But the boy wasn't breathing, and his arm was twisted behind him in a sickening position.
I gently took his left arm and started to move it around to the front of his body, and as I did, he kind of gasped and jerked and started to cry.
We will get a car to take him to a hospital if we need to.
Hull clutched the little boy's body to his, using his chest to apply pressure to a huge cut on the child's face. He headed toward the ambulances.
As I approached this area, I heard a woman's voice screaming that was my baby. That in and of itself terrified me, that this mother is about to encounter her child in this condition, and I honestly didn't think he was going to make it.
Several times, little Joseph stopped breathing, and Detective Hull got him going again until finally the medics took over. Hull left Joseph in an ambulance and returned to search the bombed-out building for more victims.
I was told later that he didn't make it, which just totally crushed me. For the evening, I thought I could have ran faster, I could have this, I could have that, but I was watching the news like everybody else, and I saw Dan. And I recognized him, and I went, wait a minute, this is the father of the little boy that we got out and got started. And so I immediately called the hospital, and I said, please tell me that this is the little boy and that he's okay. And he was. This is a full-grown Simba, which means he has to become full-grown.
2 days later, the hero, armed with a stuffed animal, visited Joseph's parents at Children's Hospital.
I'm so glad that he's okay.
I'm so glad that you were there, because he wouldn't be if you hadn't been there.
They are uncomfortable being called heroes, these men in blue. They say it was their training that took over. It's our job, they told us. But it was more than that. It was compassion and courage and gallantry. It was Oklahoma City's finest in their finest hour.
Heroes. Some saved lives. Hundreds tried to. Thousands did whatever they could. They gave their blood and their sweat. And of course, they gave their tears. They brought flowers and they planted trees. And they tied ribbons of hope around our state and wrapped bandages around the wounded. Newsline 9's Robin Marsh tells us about one of the Angels of Mercy.
It was bad. My first feeling was I don't know what happened, but it's really bad, and a lot of people are hurt.
Right here. She's having a seizure. She is. She's going to need a chair. Stretcher. She's got a seizure. Stretcher.
Controlled chaos at St. Anthony Hospital shortly after the bomb blast in downtown Oklahoma City. In the middle of it all, Nurse Elizabeth Collier. The biggest pressure to ever face this 15-year veteran. Find the space in the hospital to care for the hundreds of injured patients heading her way.
At any one point in time, we had between 300 and 500 people in our emergency room drive. So being able to triage patients, family members, and volunteers from community-wide to the correct areas became very important so that we could free up the driveway to take care of the patients. We also had multiple staff members, physicians and nurses, and the hall was filled with supplies so that we could triage.
A month later, life in the ER, and for Nurse Collier, is a bit more normal. But there are things about April 19th that will haunt her for a lifetime.
It's wherever I went, whether it was to the outpatient clinic, here in the emergency room, or in our intensive care unit, I remember the crunch of the glass under my feet.
A talented nurse who triumphed under pressure, a rescuer who defines a true hero.
And I don't think there were one or two heroes that day. I think there were thousands. And I'm honored to be included in that group.
From that day through the many to follow, Oklahoma's heroes did what came naturally, their very best.
I was standing in front of the building, and I was just in total awe as the amount of destruction that had occurred. And at that point, I still didn't know what had happened. I didn't know that it was a truck bomb or car bomb. All I knew is that there were a lot of people hurt, and there was a great amount of destruction that had occurred.
They were desperate to hear a sound of life somewhere in the vast silence of death.
I was down in the basement, and I had asked everyone to be quiet in hopes that when I yelled, I would get a response from somebody, and I did. And there happened to be a lady that was trapped under there. And I'm not really exactly sure how long it took us to get her out, but we were down there for quite some time. And once we started getting the debris moved, it was pretty evident there was about 18 inches of water that she was laying in. And I had to remove my helmet and crawl under some of the debris to get underneath there with her. And I asked her what her name was. I told her who I was, and I held her hand and told her that we were going to get her out.
At that time, it was a lot of hope. I mean, you know, the hope of finding somebody, and that early on, you know, everybody was really high-spirited, and I mean, just working just hard and fast as you could go.
And once we got her out, I turned around, and the rest of the rescue workers that were down there had cleared a path from where we were all the way to the door on the east side of the building. And it was just like walking in a supermarket, walking through an aisle. That's how good of a job they had done for us.
While Bobby Lax and his crew were working to free the woman in the basement, Mike Shannon and his men were in a place they nicknamed the Cave.
They had to work single file, coming through the crack into here. And they would move a rock, and they would pass the rock back and forth, and they would find the people. Back in here is where they were all compiled, and it was about 8 people in this one spot. I mean, literally touching each other. So the men had to work through each victim as they worked their way to the one behind them, to the one behind them, and so forth.
It was dangerous work in a tiny space in the dark, death all around.
Teams one after another would crawl back in here and work like this for hours at a time, and they'd pass out body parts, they'd pull the victims past them and pass them out.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I was scared. Probably my biggest fear was having a secondary collapse and myself being buried.
Through the horror, their hope remained. Surely, somewhere, someone was still alive.
Yeah, we was looking for voids that there might possibly be survivors in. The concrete was just so compacted, it seemed like an endless shore. And
We were able to find a few voids, but unfortunately there weren't any survivors in them.
And after the first night, there would be no more. But the rescuers continued to cling to the hope as the hours and the days and the weeks dragged on.
It takes quite a bit to become a hero, you know, and I just don't think I've done enough to be called a hero or considered a hero.
After more than 2 weeks, all that could be done had been. On May 5th, the search for victims stopped. Hope had finally vanished, but the heroes of the Heartland came back for one last look and a final farewell. They had all been here before, when times were frantic and the search desperate. They came back this last time in silence, lost in 1,000 thoughts.
The most beautiful memorial left by anyone is not in the rubble of this building, but in the hearts and the lives that knew them and loved them. We come today to remember their lives, and we come today to offer thanks. Thanks for the hundreds and hundreds of people who were involved in the rescue and recovery efforts.
As the anguished sound of a lone trumpet filled the still air, red roses sailed into what's become a symbol of horror and honor. From everywhere they watched, from up high and down low. Because even here, on this spot, where a madman's nightmare came true, a little boy can still look up to heroes.
As soon as the smoke cleared, everyone wanted to know who could have done such an evil thing and why. Investigators tracked suspects worldwide. A Shiite Muslim who flew out of Oklahoma City less than 2 hours after the bombing was stopped in London. But Abraham Ahmad was the wrong man.
I mean, I feel so bad about these people, you know, especially the kids. They got nothing to do with it, so innocent, you know. What they're trying to prove, you know, I mean, what this gonna do to you? I mean, it's gonna just hurt you, whoever did it.
And there were many other leads that did not pan out in Indiana, Minnesota, California, and Arizona. But the most astounding dead end was the arrest of 2 drifters in Missouri.
Come on with us. Come on, move out of the way.
I feel bad because I didn't have nothing to do with it.
Did you know the authorities were looking for you?
No, we had no idea until this morning.
Are you angry that your name and picture has been bannered all over the country? Tell me how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an invasion of privacy, really, especially when we didn't do it.
The first solid leads came from the debris at the blast site. A license plate and a number from an axle led investigators to a Ryder truck rented from Elliott's Body Shop in Junction City, Kansas. Agents learned the man who rented the truck gave a false name, but employees helped with a sketch. A motel operator in Junction City recognized the sketch as the man who stayed in room 25 from April 14th through the 18th. On the registration sheet, he gave his true name, Timothy McVeigh. Little did authorities know they already had the man they were looking for. Less than 2 hours after the bombing on Interstate 35 near Billings, Oklahoma, State Trooper Charlie Hanger stopped a yellow Mercury Marquis because it didn't have a license plate. The driver admitted having a concealed weapon and was booked into the Noble County Jail. His name, Timothy McVeigh. Authorities made the connection 2 days after the blast.
This announcement shows the substantial progress made by very dedicated law enforcement agents and officers in a very short period of time. But we continue to pursue absolutely every lead. We are determined that we will not rest until the people who perpetrated this terrible act are brought to justice and convicted.
McVeigh became the first suspect charged with the Oklahoma City bombing. The FBI made Kingman, Arizona a major focus of the investigation because McVeigh had lived there on and off the past couple of years. Newsline 9 traveled to Kingman and learned McVeigh had many different jobs for a few months at a time, and he moved around a lot. He lived across the street from Jack Gaughan for about 3 months.
There was 2 young fellows and a girl came in a light blue Ford pickup with Michigan license plates on it. One resembles the drawing in the paper of John Doe number 2.
McVeigh bought Gaughan plastic tubing for his yard with his employees' discount while he worked at a hardware store. McVeigh was also a part-time security guard.
He's just your average kind of guy, knowing that, nothing outstanding about Tim would stick out in my mind at all during the time that he worked for us. He was friendly when he came in. I mean, my encounters with him were always very brief. I never knew anything about his personal life, but I can say that on a business level, he was extremely professional.
McVeigh went to Arizona in the first place to visit an Army buddy, Michael Fortier. The FBI raided Fortier's trailer and made him appear before a grand jury in Oklahoma City. Newspaper reports say Fortier has implicated McVeigh in the bombing. And at a preliminary hearing in El Reno, an FBI agent testified physical evidence and eyewitnesses place McVeigh in Kansas and Oklahoma City. The judge concluded there's an indelible trail of evidence that links McVeigh to the bombing. McVeigh gave an address at the motel in Kansas and the Noble County Jail that led authorities to 2 other suspects, another Army buddy, Terry Nichols in Junction City, Kansas, and Terry's brother, James Nichols, in Decker, Michigan. Authorities searched both of their homes and say they found evidence that links Terry Nichols to the blast. He is the second man charged in the Oklahoma City bombing.
My client had no knowledge of this event until the 20th of April, after it happened, and certainly was not connected to it.
Newsline 9 traveled to Michigan to learn more about Terry's brother, James Nichols. He's charged with using explosives at his Michigan farmhouse, but is not charged in connection with the Oklahoma City bombing. A judge released James Nichols to one of the farmer's friends. Other farmers called the treasurer of the Organic Growers Association the most honest man they know.
I'm just glad to be out and free so I can get on with my life. I'd just like to thank my attorney and everyone, my family, and everyone else.
By far the biggest mystery in the bombing investigation is who is John Doe number 2 and where is he? Employees at the truck rental business in Kansas also helped with a sketch of a man who they say was with McVeigh, a square-jawed suspect with a tattoo on his left arm. Authorities made a second, then a third sketch of John Doe 2 with a ball cap, based on a description from an Oklahoma City man who says he gave McVeigh and John Doe 2 directions to Northwest 5th and Harvey, the Murrow building, 30 minutes before the bombing.
So he pulls up and, gets out of the truck?
No, he pulls up and I go up to the truck. I went to see what he needed. He said he was kind of lost a little bit. He said he was looking for 5th and Harvey, was the words he gave me. He did not distinct a building, the Murrow building or nothing like that. He just asked me where a direction of 5th and Harvey was. I kind of tried to explain it to him verbally, and he could seem a little confused by the way I was explaining it to him. So at that time, he got out of the truck, and I kind of walked him about 3 or 4 feet from where we were standing and pointed it out to him, the direction where it was.
Authorities are still trying to learn more about the plot and whether it involves just a few suspects or a lot of people, maybe even organized hate groups. Investigators also want to know more about the route that brought a deadly bomb from Kansas to Oklahoma. Newsline 9's Mike Carpenter followed the trail of evidence.
Drive north into Kansas and the red Oklahoma clay gradually vanishes, giving way to the region Kansans know as the Flint Hills. In the north-central part of the state, there's a cluster of small communities with Junction City as its hub. Surrounding it are towns like Harrington and Council Grove, and Fort Riley, where McVeigh, Nichols, and Michael Fortier served. This is the area where parts of the plan were apparently formulated and where the bomb itself was created. According to federal affidavits, a man using the name Mike Havens visited this McPherson, Kansas feed store in September of last year and again in October. On each trip, he bought 40 50-pound bags of ammonium nitrate fertilizer. From there, a 45-minute drive to Council Grove and a nondescript mini-storage on the north side of town. He rented Unit 40, and at the opposite end of the same building, out of sight of traffic, Unit 37. For 6 months, the fertilizer was apparently stored here, unused, but not forgotten. In mid-March, Terry Nichols bought a home in a row of look-alike houses on South 2nd Street in Harrington. No one lives there now. The only thing that distinguishes the Nichols home from the others is the occasional return of FBI agents to the scene. This neighborhood didn't get to know Nichols very well. In the few weeks he lived here, he stayed mostly to himself. Even to the people who did know him, Nichols was something of a mystery. Realtor Georgia Rucker sold him the home.
He told you he didn't pay taxes.
Right.
And, you know, I'm thinking as a realtor, gee, I got to tell Mr. Seek, is that
Mr. Seek.
look, this guy's really interested in your house, but he doesn't have a social security number. He doesn't pay taxes.
Everything he said would be strictly cash basis. Yeah, it raised questions, and I did tell Mr. Seek. But a seller can do whatever the seller decides to do. Mr. Nichols gave us references, and Mr. Seek called references, and everyone had a good opinion of him.
Meanwhile, Timothy McVeigh checked into this motel in Junction City.
He was a very regular, nice, neat, young American guy.
And federal affidavits say the two talked frequently by phone. Newsline 9 has learned that a witness has placed Terry Nichols or someone resembling him at the Council Grove mini storage prior to the attack. For 2 weeks before the bombing, the witness told the FBI, a truck identical to Nichols' pickup was parked here almost every day. The witness saw a man he thinks was Nichols working here, but doesn't know exactly what he was doing.
No, not a word. Absolutely not a word.
What's your name?
Another witness's tip brought FBI agents to the Geary State Fishing Lake between Junction City and Harrington. They cordoned off the area for days, and divers searched the lake for clues. But it was on a bluff overlooking the lake that investigators found evidence.
At this point, the only thing I can tell is you can't go up on the ridge.
This isolated spot, they believe, is the place where months of planning finally produced a weapon. A mixture of materials, most of which anyone could buy, blended and packed into 4 tons of death. Agents found traces of fuel oil and pieces of detonator cord. And Newsline 9 has learned they made plaster casts of tire tracks and footprints. It's a remote area, seldom visited by locals. A perfect place for secretive work, one might think. But from the nearby highway, the top of a big truck would be plainly visible, and was, witnesses say, on April 18th. From Geary Lake, the Ryder truck, now loaded with the bomb, apparently headed south on U.S. Highway 77, which eventually runs through Edmond and into Oklahoma City. Following it, according to some witnesses, was a blue pickup truck. They apparently stopped at this convenience store on the north side of El Dorado, Kansas, then headed south again through El Dorado and Augusta, past Winfield and Arkansas City, and sometime shortly after 3 p.m. on April 18th, crossed the border into Oklahoma. At about 4 p.m., the Ryder truck, followed by a metallic blue pickup, pulled into this convenience store on the south side of Newkirk. None of these employees were here that day, but those who were say 4 men, including McVeigh and Nichols, were in the group.
Do you know, did they pay with cash, credit cards?
Cash.
Cash.
Paid with cash.
Some witnesses say they saw the men near Perry late the evening of the 18th. The last sighting, just before the bombing, was the next morning north of downtown, a few minutes before the explosion.
Tonight, there are 2 men charged in the Oklahoma City bombing, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. Late last week, Nichols' attorney produced names of witnesses who placed him in Kansas just before and just after the bombing.
And the search for suspects continues. Officers are still looking for John Doe number 2, while a grand jury considers indictments in the case.
This Memorial Day, almost 6 weeks now after the bombing of the Murrow building, we remember the victims and their families and the heroes involved in rescue efforts.
And as we leave you tonight, the image of that bombed-out building remains forever etched in the memories of people all around the world. Good night.
what they did to the people.
Yeah.